Just taking a sec to set up. Hi, how are you?
Just recording something. Yeah.
Hey, how are you? It's so nice to see you. Such a nice surprise. Cheers. And Richard, you want to hide that from video view? How are you? Are we up there or not yet?
No.
No?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Wait for another remote.
It's Thursday.
It's okay.
Let's do this. Thanks everyone for coming on our first almost cold evening. Just like the end of October, and I'm really happy about it. It's not immediate. And so before we start these classes, especially these last 3 courses, which is the review of the last 5.5 years, 6 years of study, we want to put into practice some of the core ideas that we've studied before. So if you haven't studied it before, just go along, pretend, and it might look weird, yeah, because we do all this blah blah, bing bing bong bong, but it actually has profound meaning if you know how to think about these ritualistic looking things. And tonight in particular is my birthday. No. I thought I'd throw that in there so it's not like as you can see that. Today in particular, it's an incredible subject and extremely deep, and it takes years of study, and we're going to touch it. But if we leave the room today with just an imprint in our consciousness that the core ideas that we talk about tonight. Oh, thank you. I want it to be my birthday all the time.
Missy's here.
Missy, the other birthday girl, is here. So what I'm inviting you to do is just cocoon in here. Let that process of metamorphosis happen to your mind. You have some sense of what's happening inside of you, your feelings, your emotions, etc. You have your reservations, you have your hopes, you have the idea of who you are right now, the idea of some shitty self that you were before, some nicer self that you were before that. They're all somewhere in there. So these ideas are proposing that whatever that thing is can be like a complete transformation, metamorphosized into beyond our conception, beyond it. So I'm inviting you, cocooning here in the warmth that is the 3 jewels. Listen with a pure heart. Think of others who might need this transformation, and shoot for the stars and infinity, because it's possible. So particularly the subject matter tonight, it should color everything else. There's no other reason to sit here and go, look, there's some pictures and some words, and I get an idea, and then I die. Yeah, this is beyond the everyday stuff, and I'm inviting you to be like the metamorphosis that happens in a cocoon. The bug goes in there, and we read an article. You know what happens to it? It creates like a soup. It melts down to a soup. The cells are like, it's no longer anything, and then somehow it comes out as a butterfly. Same creature goes in, completely melts down, which mustn't feel very nice. Then the result is incredible. So to do that, to begin that process of transformation, I invite you, please, to imagine your perfect universe and give it away with this ritual called the mandala offering. So, Steve, you want
Sati
Buddhi Jishin Metotram Riranding Shin Yinde Empadi Sangye Shindu Mite Vargi Drogun Nanda Shimla Jiparsho Hidam Guru Ragnamandala Kam Niryatayami
Sangye
Shirang Zogi Choknanha Janju Bardu Dakmi Daksuchi Dahi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sangye Driparsho
Sangye
Chiram Zogi Choknam Ha Janju Bardu Dakmi Gyapsushi Dahi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Benchir Sangye Driparsho
Sangye
Chiram Soki Choknam Ha Janju Bardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Dahi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sangye Driparsho. Let's do a quick meditation, just a tiny one. We have a lot to cover. So take a comfortably seated position. Be aware of the space you're in. Be conscious of the other people about you, around you. They might enter a deep state of meditation, and you moving about might jolt them out. So see if we can be completely still. Imagine the protection of the three jewels. The busy outside New York is far away. Leave your problems beyond the walls for a second. You'll find them later. They'll come and find you. So just take a comfortably seated position. The idea is your spine is straight. Do a quick scan of your body from the bottom up, releasing any tension. Any sounds or movements, just incorporate them into your mind and let them go. Watch them come and go. And return to center. Continue scanning your body. Release your tension around your shoulders. Relax the muscles on the sides of your eyes, the space between your eyebrows. And just gently bring your attention to your breath entering and exiting your nostril, or the abdomen rising and falling, the chest expanding and contracting, any part of sort of tactile sensations you can feel, or how you imagine the breath entering and exiting your body. Just bring your mind to that as a point of focus. If your mind does what minds do, which is to chase after ideas or sensations or sounds, just whenever you become aware, just gently bring it back to what you've chosen, which is the sensation of the breath entering and exiting your body. Now I'd like you to bring your attention mostly to the exhale. See if you can follow it all the way until it begins to turn, pause, and then turn into an inhale. Just follow the exhale as far as you can, not controlling it, but your attention is mostly on that, and see if you can sense the relaxation that happens to your body as you follow the exhale. Now switch to the inhale. See if you can bring your attention to the inhale and see where it begins and where it ends at the pause. See if you can follow the beginning, the middle, and the end of the inhale. See if you can sense the alertness that it brings to your mind. Just focusing on the breath only. And next, we're going to focus in the space between the inhale and the exhale without controlling it. Don't start just yet, because in that space, I'd like you to imagine that space between your breaths creates the most perfect environment around you, so you can imagine yourself in your most ideal place, a place where you will meet an ultimate teacher, someone that will unravel your universe and teach you everything you need. So it can be an imaginary place or a real place. And we're going to find it in the space between the inhale and the exhale. Imagine you just appear there, and with each pause, you get more detail on the ground and the sky, your body on the cushion there. So try it now, the next few rounds where you focus on the pause between the inhale and exhale. This space you're sitting in transforms into your perfect environment for enlightenment. There's no right or wrong, just allow it to come up. Just the last few steps. I'd like you to imagine that your gaze is down on the ground in front of you, and there begins to appear from nothing, from thin air, like a hologram, your perfect teacher. I want you to begin to scan them up from their cross-legged position. Their bodies can be as brilliant or as solid as you like. You can sense their presence, but begin to look up at their beautiful presence. And when you get up to their face, see if you can see their eyes as eyes that are familiar to you, but you don't quite recognize. So you have an inquisitive wanting to look inside their eyes. Just gradually scan up and land on their eyes. See if you can see pure love and wisdom in those eyes, staring at you with complete openness and acceptance. See if you can sense they know absolutely everything about you, more than you're willing to admit to yourself. And as you look a little deeper into their eyes, you can begin to imagine what they know about you, this present life you're in, where you came from, no secrets, every good and terrible thing, every hope and fear, with complete love and acceptance for who you are just as you are. And then see if you can imagine their mind as they see you, truly see you. Recognize that the reason they know you this well is because they are your future self, completely awakened, completely aware, completely at peace. They know every step you need between where you are now and where they are now. And in their heart is this pull, this wish for you to reach them quickly. this wish to stop every hurt along your path. For every confusion to be gone. And for the utmost certainty of freedom to be like a fire inside of you, getting closer and closer to where they're at now. Gradually withdraw your vision, feeling a little distance from them, and bringing your awareness back into this room. Keeping the vision in your heart, sensing the seat you're in right now, and know that there's a path between here and there. And gently, just very gently, when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come to the room. Do you need a chair? Yeah? Okay, there is. Cool. Thank you. Who was a really hot, sexy Buddha in the future? Good. Did you like yourself? That's a. We'll talk about that tonight. Who found that difficult? You can be honest. Okay. Who found it relaxing, exciting? Nice. See, it's empty. That's it. That's the summary of emptiness. Okay. Do you remember what we did last week? Does anybody remember what we did last week? Good, you're about to. And I thought I'd cheat for you. We're going to create 6 small groups, and we're going to have, that's right, Paul's gone. Rachel, can you take this corner? Anthony, can you take a corner? Yes, you can. You have cheat sheets? Yeah, so Anthony will take a corner at the back. Aaron, can you help him? Yeah, you and Anthony, so you're together. So Rachel over here, Anthony over there. Stephen in the middle. Yeah, so Steve, you can turn around and take that middle section. Emily in the corner under the Buddha. Thank you. And Sarah, can you and Richard come over here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's enough. Let's do 5. Find yourselves a corner. Everybody's name on the sheet. It's a simple 2-question, 3-question quiz. Just to review the foundation of last week's class so we can move on to this week's class. For those of you who are good at cheating, and I encourage you to do so, on the back of this is next week's quiz, which should tell you what you should pay attention to today's class. Yeah. So we've got Rachel in this corner, and Lenny and Aaron in that corner, Stephen in this corner, and 2 corners over there, right? Emily and Sarah. And we got 10 minutes to do this. Everybody's name. This is the part where you get to know each other. Hi, my name is. Emily, you have the cheat sheet? I don't. I think I might. You have ACI, yeah. Is it class 2? Yeah, I have answer key to class 2. I saw you hiding. That's the only reason I picked you. It's the only reason. I was going to pick someone else. You got to teach each other, okay? If you haven't been here before. Buddhists do awake, yeah. What Buddhists do work out.
So, what does Bodhi mean?
There's one like forced to occur, and if you practice well,
You guys
mind is forced by the karma.
sorry. Alright, so does it refer to the mind of Buddha? The answer is no. Why?
Anybody remember?
Right. Are you trying this? So bodhicitta
Yeah.
So now it doesn't.
Sorry, I'm totally.
What are you wondering?
What are you wondering? They're saying what my argument is about Buddhism, which is that it's not the Buddhist state of mind because the Buddha they are.
Number 2.
That's not
Given the
the wish for mind. That's not quite right. The argument we're trying to say is, even though it says Buddha mind, it doesn't mean the mind of a Buddha. It means a mind that wants to be a Buddha. Yeah, it's not the Buddha's mind, but it's his wish to be.
Yeah. And also, like, if someone's mind, this is not like cosmic, but if someone's mind already had Buddhicitta, also what other
That's good. I can argue that you could have wisdom and bodhicitta and not be a Buddha. Right? That you could know emptiness, wisdom, and you could. Ultimate bodhicitta is. Yeah, but the bodhisattva from level 1 through to level 9.9 isn't Buddha yet. They know emptiness. Just pass. Yeah. At that point, it's really difficult to go like a millisecond before the mind pops out, the body enjoyment body, and the projection body. Like at what point do you say that's so? That's a whole big argument. The point I'm saying here is the difference is omniscience. Yeah, between Buddha and bodhicitta. It's just like you actually achieve omniscience, where you can see past, present, and future at once, relative and ultimate reality at the same time. I'm destroyed. You have that love for everybody. Everybody's the object of your projection. It's voluntary now. It's not forced. Yeah, until then, you still have some very subtle idea of a history of things coming this way. Then it's gone. Technical discussion and long debate. I don't know. Here. But intellectually, we can get to it.
Well, it's like interactive.
So the next question is having that positive presence and how
Hey, how are you? Yeah, we're doing ACI 1, 2, 3. We're up to 16.
Yeah, you're on 16. I see. I did Wednesday.
You did?
I'm on list 3, yeah. So maybe a mistake, but I thought.
What's your name?
Kathy.
Kathy, Hector, pleasure. So you've been doing one with G. You did one? Did you do two with G?
I was not sure. 2 was like my word was difficult, and it was but I'll probably sign up to do because there's like a rebroadcast. I didn't really.
Oh, I
I
see.
didn't, I like lesson 4. I didn't
Oh, I'm so
realize it was
sorry.
16 though, yeah.
That's cool. You know what we're covering today? They're doing review from last week's class. You know what we're covering today? ACI 2. It's the beginning of ACI 2.
It's really quite funny.
I know.
So maybe I'll get there. I thought maybe I could do some of that all the time, but it was too much.
She's amazing. You'll get a quick summary too, and that'll be a nice imprint on your mind. Have you done much of the ACIs before?
No. I had training in, I'm sort of yogi. From there. I learned some sense, still, like I have very bad Hindi. So, I'm a yogini. I'm one of the Sakyamunis brothers. That crowd for years now.
Okay. So that's good that you're with G because she's connected with that crowd. Isn't she?
I didn't realize that, but I'll have to ask.
Yeah, talk to her. I think she's got a teacher. Okay.
I see.
Yeah.
Distract you.
No, that's okay. I'm about to
I
teach
come
her.
in the morning with Sarah.
You're sitting over there.
And then Javier, who's young.
Yeah. This has got a baby. It's about to have a baby. Yeah. That's awesome. Name again, Jenny? Sorry, I was going to say.
No, I guess I'll have to email him, see if there's like a shower.
I think they just had one 2 weeks ago. I don't know about the registry. I love him. He's amazing.
He's like so long, he's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's like,
So
like Sarah. So I'll just
find
hang
a
out
seat.
wherever.
Grab.
I don't need it.
Okay. And then Sarah's over there if you want to hang out with her. And then we'll start the class in about 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for coming in.
It's weird.
It's worth it. I like
But look at these people. It's such awesome people. Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah. We just did a nice meditation. It's auspicious you're here. Because, I mean, what are the chances you pop into when we start ACI 2 review? And it's just 2 classes that covers all of ACI 2. This is the first half of ACI 2.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
It's worth suffering in a hot tunnel, 20 after
That's a
7
long
and racing
time.
downhill. I mean, yeah, it's like short traffic. Normally it's like 2 or 2.5
And you came on the
hours.
train? Some people do the train,
I was
the
on the
path.
bus. Yeah.
Oh, I see. With what?
This meditation. I'm just like, my mind
The 7 point?
I'm not saying it's actually clearly very profound. That's why I was asking.
So karma is karma and ethics.
Yeah.
The 5th step in psychology is this is one where it goes not
Oh,
one
that's the idea.
The meditation. Oh, no, not that one. This one. This is a meditation. So it's actually steps in a meditation where you sit down and try to have this gratitude and it's from the spirit. Oh my God.
So you're ready to
So I was doing that. And then
think it was so great because my mom is like the kindest. It was so nice, and I felt like, and then I thought about seeing like my mom and my dad, and it was very different.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How can the identity you saw all the
Absolutely. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, I love it.
And that's why they call it the cause and effect, because if you can generate that feeling, and the next thing is, oh, thank you, like, oh, you did all these things, I want to help, you know.
Well, I can see the visually, I can see my face of my mom, like I could see my mom.
3 minutes. Hi, Jeremy. How are you? Nice to see you.
It ends in life. Well, that was from last. We were also talking views of that. No, I understand, but
It's like this.
Yeah, right. So we can say one, right? Pretty much understood too. Projection is allowed. Anything kind of fixed nature.
Yeah.
The
last question is, how can the idea?
You do the God, you have to get this. It sounds complicated. God. You gotta hear it.
So how can the idea
Like umbrella.
What is it?
They are.
I know they are.
Like perception.
Exactly.
So they are.
What about emptiness?
The way I see it.
That is emptiness.
That everything that there's no.
I like to think of it as like, how to go outside.
So as the
Well,
ultimate
like the things,
Yeah,
like,
they can teach it with right? So it's like as we proceed coming from the outside, coming apart from the inside, then or 100%.
They're usually described as being two sides of
So the definition of emptiness is that intellectually understanding emptiness is understanding everything comes from the result 100% from your side. So one detail is like right? So most people think the angry thoughts is coming from the boss's side, like yelling at me, and then back.
Never actually
This is the air. It's 100% coming from you and your arm. So ultimately, it's about
1 minute.
We're used to saying it's bad.
like, and then when you go into
So the other analogy that is your universe, your world, in the world, and what drives those projections.
But it's the thing, it's the only way out, and this is why Buddhism otherwise they Buddhism, I mean, because they're empty. Oh yeah, you start to understand.
Like I say, but like even and they say continue to find out. Yeah. So what's your but I know I'm not the reason that or maybe something on the side that I need
Somebody else. And either and the only way to undo that
otherwise you're not
is
gonna
to live by the rules of karma and live
Steve.
that's transformed in front of your okay. So I think that's why it's so common.
Yeah, we turned around and get in a circle. Did you just arrive in the middle? In the middle of everything.
What time do we know? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time.
Still over here for a minute. If you're overwhelmed,
Thank you, and
do you want this back?
It does. It is.
You got this back?
Yeah. And can we get it from Emily and we'll. Good. Isn't that cool? Rachel? Thank you. Let's go. I'm very encouraged. I heard some pretty amazing explanations of karma and emptiness. I'm sitting there like in bliss hearing some, I think I heard termites see the pen still as food and we see it as pencil. I saw the 100% coming from you, knowing that there are other levels. So it makes me very happy to hear you teach each other, because that's what these ideas are for. Now, they are still to be tested. We are learning an alphabet in this class. By no means are you being provided with complete insight. You're being provided with a formula that you got to figure out, does it work? Yeah, I'm saying I've been using it for 21 years, and I am more on this side of the fence than the old side of the fence. But 21 years with a ton of doubt, with a bunch of heartache, with things breaking up and falling apart and coming together, and realizations and then doubts. I can't give you any of that, and neither can the Buddha. If they could, you'd all be enlightened. And that's a capital T truth. If there was someone that you could go to, I mean, when I was a child, mother over there used to force me to go to Catholic church until the priest told me to go and do my first confession. I'm like, I think I was 8 or something, maybe a little younger. I didn't know why I had to do my first confession. I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. I was right. No, but I really couldn't think of anything, you know. And then he was pushing and pushing, and I felt uncomfortable. And he's like, and he started then suggesting things I could have done to my sisters. And I'm like, they're stupid bitches. I mean, and they deserved it. Like, I didn't do anything. But you know, thinking back at those years, there was a belief in me when things got really terrible in your childhood. I would, on my hands and knees, beg this creature that had complete power over all the good and bad things that happened to me. And it was like trying to figure out a code that if you did just the right words with the right intonation and like the secret password that they could hear you, like you'd had to do the stupid dance or there was some code that none of us knew, but if you did it just right, you're forgiven any bad shit that was supposed to happen to you. Or you'd sit there and go, please don't kill Auntie Betty that got cancer or whatever. And if you just said it right with the right, I promise I will do it with the right stuff, then Aunt Betty will not have cancer. Right? And it seemed bizarre to me, because it seemed like, shouldn't we have the code? Do I have to grovel? Do I have to give money to the priest? Do I have to tell him dirty things about my sister that I didn't think I needed to? You know, like that. I don't know. I had some doubt about that process back then, but then I was fortunate. My mom said, you don't have to go back again. When I said, I don't want to go ever again, you know, she's like, you don't have to. You know, I'm like, excellent. But really check what creates the good and bad things in your world and what makes them start and stop. This is giving you an alternative. Lord Buddha said, oh, I just woke up. It's this weird dream. It ain't that stuff, someone with ultimate power over there. I'm sorry to say it like that in the West, but that's what these teachings are saying. It's like, it ain't out there with the secret handshake that all of a sudden you'd be excused from stuff that is happening to you. And the only way it can stop hurting you is if you just throw him a tip or some, I don't know, you know, like it's like a bribe. It's either they've got no power or they can't. It's not them creating the world. And that's hard to hear because I'm 51 years old today, yeah? And there's still a part of me that believes somewhere out there, someone will forgive me, you know, or cut me some slack. I know some bad stuff I've done in my past. I see the stuff coming up in my life. Someone's going to cut me some slack if I just do the right. But is it this dress code? Is it that dress code? Yeah, and going for protection to that thing sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Which means it doesn't. Think about it. Sometimes does, sometimes doesn't, means it doesn't. Because if it does, it would. I'm now talking riddles. Anyway, that's not the subject of today. It is actually. It is. The first thing we study, or they study, and we get to summarize in the West, 5 great books in all Tibetan monasteries. They study pramana, perception. They study Vinaya, ethics. They study, what else? Majjhimika, middle way. Yeah. They study the perfection of wisdom. The perfection of wisdom. Yeah. Wisdom. What the hell is that? Right? We studied Lamrim here, the condensed entire trip from now to then. Abhidharma, that's right, Abhidharma is the one I was forgetting. Abhidharma, which is like everything, cosmology, everything put together. And in the Asian Classics Institute courses that we've been teaching here for the last 5.5, 6 years, and this is the summary of the first 5, we've reached the point in our study on the perfection of wisdom, trying to understand really what's behind this reality that we think works in a certain way. And if we knew it would work in a certain way, we could make it do what we want it to do. But sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't, which means we don't know what makes this reality work. We might know 80%, 70%. Some of us don't know at all. Some humans on this planet, they do this and that happens. Others, they do this, doesn't matter, and then whatever happens is nice. Why? Really why? So in these classes, we're just learning a new language. We're learning words. We're learning letters, the alphabet. What I loved about what you were reviewing is that I heard it from you to each other, which means you've thought about it. Which means that, and that's all the Buddha said. It's like, don't believe me, because if you do, you're stupid. Because if you believe me because I said so, then you gotta believe the next bastard that comes and says something else, because if your whole basis for believing something is I said so, then by that logic, you gotta believe them and them and them and them. And that's not what we should do. You are maneuvering yourself, swimming yourselves around this universe on planet Earth at the moment, and you got to figure out for you, what is this life? And this is one map, yeah? One map that I believe has shown me more insight than any other map I've seen on the planet. We'll get to talk about that today. This course, this particular course, is stunning. And I'll give you the lineage of what we're studying, yeah? We're studying the Abhisamaya Alamkara, I can never say it right. The perfection of wisdom. So I want to talk about that in a second, but I'll just give you where it came from. Lord Buddha, is that up there? Yes. Yeah. And then the book we're studying is the Abhisamaya Alamkara. That's it. Abhisamaya Alamkara, noted down by Master Asanga around 350 AD. He took dictation from
Maitreya.
Good. Maitreya. Now, if you're new to these ideas, I wouldn't have said it when we did ACI 2, Asian Classics Institute Course 2, Course on Refuge, where this content comes from. I would have just told you, okay, Maitreya is the
Future Buddha.
Future Buddha, right? Oh, okay, I got that. What the hell does that mean? It sounded religious already, right? such a problem with hearing Maitreya as a future Buddha. It's like, great, another Messiah, the next thing I need. You know, now they're going to tell me to go and confess to their priest, who just happens to be dressed in red, not black, and now it's the same problem. So I had problems with a future Buddha giving dictation to Master Asanga in 350 AD. Just for those of you who were studying here, give me some insight into Master Asanga. Who was his half-brother? Master Vasubandhu. Yeah? Who was their mother?
A nun.
An ex-nun. Good.
What's her name? Do you know?
I don't know her name.
I wanna know her name.
One father was a king, and the other like an Indian king, a Raj, yeah. And the other one was a monk.
No.
Yeah,
Wait,
What?
no.
is that right?
No.
So
No, he was a Brahmin.
One was a Brahmin, which is what I just
Brahmin is
said.
different than a monk. Brahmin is different than a king.
Is the issue that he has?
Right?
No, it's not. I just want to get that, whatever it is, let's go find out. It's not that important. It's not that important. Yeah? The point here is there's some controversy in my mind. There was when I was studying this. Some dude called Maitreya, future Buddha, that if you go and read the sutras, he was never mentioned as a Buddha, was he? He was, if you remember the sutras, he was
Bodhisattva.
a bodhisattva named Maitreya at the time of the Buddha, asking all these cool questions, right? So there's like, is he a Buddha or a bodhisattva? And what's the difference? And why are we depicting this person as a future Buddha? And what the hell are they doing, giving dictation to some half-brother of Master Vasubandhu, who wrote the Abhidhamma Kosha, right? I know these are all words if you haven't been studying this, but it's sort of a big deal. Yeah? Because the grand majority of all the books that are studied in these monasteries come from both these brothers. Like something like 80% of all the textbooks that summarize the Buddhist teachings comes from these two brothers. The mother, when she was a nun, had a vision that if she bore children, they would be the keepers of this wisdom for time immemorial. And so she went and had a baby with a Brahmin and a baby with whoever else was the next person, and these two became these half brothers, and it was stunning. Now, you got to discuss karma and emptiness. I'll just go straight for the gut and just take it if you can. Yeah, you just discussed karma and emptiness, right? The pencil for humans could be food for a termite, right? There's no pencilness necessarily in that object forcing itself on sentient beings. There is no food necessarily being forced from that object to sentient beings, because that thing is empty of being either or. The projection forced upon you of food is forced on a termite's mind towards these otherwise empty objects, but a basis. And the pencilness is projected from a human mind onto that. That is rock solid logic if you take the time to investigate it and listen to it over and over and test it out for yourself. Is everybody okay with that so far? As a premise, you have to test it. Yeah? And that's all emptiness is that like that pencil, absolutely everything under existence is empty of being the way you experience it only. Why? Because other beings experience it differently. That means you're responsible for that. Now then, we've got to investigate what the hell did I do to make me experience that and not that. That study is karma, yeah? Which is a complex topic. We'll get to it at the end of this course. So if that premise is correct, then you are generators, creators, projectors of this entire universe. With that logic, together we are like Indra's web, reflecting each other and this 3D virtual reality we call solid reality. Yeah. The other thing we're projecting is the perception that things are not coming this way, that things are coming that way, that this is really a flower, right? And we all agree with that, and people say that's conventional reality because it's a convention. If I grab this object and throw it in front of 1,300 aliens, it's unlikely they say it's a flower. unless they've got some other convention that meets ours. Anybody that calls this a flower under the Buddhist definition must be a human. That's what makes us human. We experience these things in the same way. And termites experience pencils or those objects in a different way. Emptiness, karma. That was your last question, right? Two sides of the same coin. Now check this out. If that is true, then everything is like that. Everything is empty. That's what the Heart Sutra says, you know? And he lists everything that's empty, including your mind, including emptiness, including enlightenment. It gets weird and sexy and bizarre. I'd love to do a class on that. Heart Sutra. Including your experience of yourself as a mortal creature. Including your experience of yourself as a mortal creature. That is empty. It doesn't have to be that way. Now, is it that way? And are you forced to experience it like pencils? And yes, you are this for now. But you weren't always this. Was I, Mum? Was I like this when I was born? You'd be exploded if I was. Right? Right? I was cute, right? Yeah, look at me now. Yeah. See, that's samsara. So get that. Is it possible then that if you've planted the right seeds, the right imprints in your mind, the thing that forces you to project this reality, if you really worked hard at planting just the right seeds to free yourself from a mortal experience and begin a tantric experience of seeing yourself as a divine being, a tantric angel, or whatever the words you want to call it, an enlightened being, doesn't matter. If you began to use this technology to put the imprints in your mind, so when you looked at this, you saw with a sense of bliss and ultimate understanding that it's not flesh, it is something beyond. Is that possible? To look upon the same object, which is blank, empty, there's no armness coming this way. Armness is coming this way. Is it possible if you planted just the right seeds, you could have a completely different experience of that and not be crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah? Would humans think you're crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Some. You'd have to share the virtue of the beings that see this. We can't share the virtue of or the lack of virtue of a termite to taste wood. Yeah, we can't sit there and look at a pencil and salivate and go, can't wait to eat that. We just can't. We can imagine it, but we don't have that impulse. Yeah, and humans, we share this as that. So if there's that and there's humans, is it possible that other beings can see their own limbs as something beyond human? And I have to logically say, yeah. Now, just because I can logically say, yeah, does not mean I have to accept it. I should continue to test it. Doesn't mean I have to believe it. Right? It just means I've got to test it. I'm doing a roundabout way of explaining Maitreya and Asanga, by the way. Okay? The closer you get to realizing that your projections are holier, cleaner, more beautiful, more sustainable, less samsaric, less painful, then the more beings around you that you will share that reality with, that convention with. Like all humans see human-like existence. All animals see animal-like existence. All enlightening beings are seeing enlightening type existence. So it would make sense that if you decided to get enough renunciation to say, screw this way of living, the old way of living, I need this new technology and I'm going to apply it, you can begin to have valid experiences, valid visions, valid moments where you realize that beings are teaching you stuff, teaching you, pulling you towards that. Is that reasonable to say? I know it sounds like, oh, it sounds religiously to me. Yeah, and it does, right? It's like I had a vision of the Virgin Mary. You could totally have a vision of the Virgin Mary that was valid for you as teaching you something. Under this system, totally. Does that make you crazy? I don't know. Some crazy people can have visions of the Virgin Mary, and some non-crazy people can have visions of the Virgin Mary. Both crazy is a projection, and Virgin Mary is a projection. And valid is a projection. Sorry, that's what this technology is. So imagine a being, sorry, I'm going to get to questions later, a being that has done enough planting in their consciousness, which is the stuff that projects your reality onto emptiness, right? So this shadow on the wall that might or might not be Virgin Mary, for some people could be stain on the wall of urine, and for another person, because the toilet upstairs broke, and for another person, it could be, I just had a sequence of events that totally told me that's the Virgin Mary talking to me. Possible or not possible? Possible, right? Now, it sounds like Nepal, right? Not possible. Yeah, that's when you bargain. They're like, come on, it's 5 rupees, not possible. We're like, possible. Anyway, so the closer you get to cleaning out samsara from your projections, the more you will likely experience beings that are teaching you how to get there, because they got there first. Fair? So now I don't have a problem with a being who's completely immersed in this way of practicing before their natural life ends, doing deep meditation retreats, debating logic, studying scripture, the Buddhist ideas, trying to internalize them, and then beginning to have experiences that are valid for them. And one experience is, I left this realm for a while and I got a download that I had to write down from that discussion in what he called his heaven, right? So then all of us, and that's where this book that we're going to discuss, that learn from, the Perfection of Wisdom, comes from. Yeah, so it comes from that dictation session from Lord Maitreya to Master Asanga. And then there's a commentary by Master Haribhadra, yeah? And you'll see that in the reading. If you've been doing the reading, highly encourage it. And then Kedrup Tempa Darge, he alone wrote the majority of Sarah May's monastery's textbooks, summarizing all these things, a commentary on the Abhisamayalankara, on the original words of the Buddha. Yeah. So the subject matter, so that's questions 2 and 3 in your homeworks. By the way, that's why there's 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. The subject matter that these books discuss, and I think that's all I need to tell you about them. Yes, it is. Sir?
Number 3, the analysis of perfection of wisdom. Do you mean the Prajna Paramita Dhyana is the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, or is this a Perfection of Wisdom coming out of the?
I don't know the Tibetan name. It's a commentary on the Abhisamayalankara.
Okay.
So Prajna Paramita, is it very hot for you guys in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, right? It's like boiling. Can we open that? Can we clip open that window and move the curtain? The top thing opens, right, Steve?
Yeah, it opens down.
Yeah. And maybe, are you warm or cold there, Alison? I ask you because that door could open and get air in. And can you push open that door and then maybe sit on this side if you need a back rest. Thank you. Muy caliente. So who's heard the word Prajna Paramita? Yeah. And it means, say it loud, it means the perfection of wisdom, right? But it really, so that's the Tibetan, Cherokee Parlu to Chimpa. Wisdom to the other side, gone to. Yeah? It's the wisdom that takes you to the other side, that makes you gone to the other side. So that it's, and we're going to give you I'm going to give you a couple of ideas about what the perfection of wisdom actually means. And it's important because it's one of the things we need to have in our state of mind in order to activate this knowledge in us. Yeah, and when you discuss emptiness and karma, you're getting close to intellectually understanding. Now, moving that intellectual to practice, habituating, meditating, and internalizing is a completely other story. Yeah, and that, I don't know how many in this room are going to run that race. I know all of you in this room today are going to have an imprint, if you've not got it already, that this is the key to awakening. Yeah, you need 2 other keys based on the last class, right? What are the 2 other keys? Renunciation and bodhicitta. So this is key number 3, which lets you see renunciation and bodhicitta in a way deeper way. In a way deeper way. I said that. So sometimes when we say Prajnaparamita, we refer to the collection of sutras that talk about emptiness mostly. Yeah? And that collection in Tibetan is called the... Who slept in Phuping in Nepal, up in the mountains bordering China, in that tiny monastery that's 600 years old, after the earthquake killed it?
Gom Rim or something?
No.
Oh no, that was...
So when the monastery when the temple got destroyed in Nepal in the earthquake, for people at the Refuges who traveled over there with 108 lives, they saved all the holy texts that were behind the altar and put them in this lock and key box, and it was all the collection of works on emptiness, and it was called the Yum. Do you remember that? Yum.
Mother.
The mother, right? Why is the collection of sutras, the words that we have to study and internalize and get ideas for to live, why are they that talk about emptiness called the mother? Yum.
Wisdom is female.
Wisdom is female is good. I take it. Yeah, they give birth to Buddhas. Okay, these ideas give birth to Buddhas, and I propose that if imprints in our minds, the way we get things, the way we think through things, the impressions that we create as we consider things, act on things, speak about things, if they create imprints that then become our reality, our projections of pencil or food, right? Or wisdom or schmuckness, yeah, enlightenment or humanity, then the talk we're doing tonight, the idea we're doing tonight, ¿querés sentarte en una silla? Tenemos 3 sillas acá atrás. Thank you. Hey, everybody, say hi to Mimi from Argentina. She's just visiting. She arrived yesterday. Un besote, mira. Mi hija está ahí atrás, si quieres decirle hola. So one thing that we say when we talk about perfection of wisdom, I want you to know it refers to Yum, the collection of sutras that talk about emptiness, because it is the most profound thing you could do in this life, because it's the opposite of what this life informs us. We think life comes this way. You hurt me, so I can hate you now. That's how we think it works. But this is saying you got it all wrong. She is empty. The only reason I experienced her hurting me is because I must have hurt others in the past. Damn, I don't like that. She just hurt me. I didn't do anything today. Right? But if the world comes this way, then it's in me. Because someone else likes her saying bad things to me. This is profound. Yeah? And it is the only thing to do on planet Earth is to reverse that cycle. You hurt me, I hurt you. Yeah? It's to kill it, to stop it. So one of the things we talk about is the works on emptiness. The Yum is Prajnaparamita. For those who did course 15, who did it really well, put down your hands.
No one ever in the history of time.
What did we study in course 15? Yeah, but what text? Which school?
Mind only.
Mind only, right? And then towards the end of Mind only, we went and studied Majjhimika, Prasangika. And between Mind only, sorry for those of you who between Mind only, which is one way of interpreting all of the Buddhist teachings. Yeah, between Mind only and Prasangika, the highest way of interpreting, there's no bigger umbrella. Your mind explodes. You go, oh, I've got everything now. Right? Between Mind only and that umbrella, there is Majjhimika, Svatantrika, right? Which is the middle way independent school, right? So a different way to think, when someone says, I'm studying Prajnaparamita, I'm studying the perfection of wisdom, it refers to, in the monastery, on the complete study of the middle way independent school view of what is emptiness. Okay? It's 12 years in the monastery. 12 years. Yeah, I mean, it's not the only thing you study in those 12 years, but it takes about that time. Yeah? A different, give me something else that is Majjhimi, that is the perfection of wisdom.
What is LMW? Sorry.
Lower middle way.
Lower middle.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Something else.
Interdependent. Oh no.
Don't go there. I just want to give you the definition of Prajnaparamita. You can go into the detail later because we did that already in ACI 15. What else is Prajnaparamita? When I say perfection of wisdom, what do you think about?
Breaking through the other side.
That's the
Like the text? Or
no. We just when no.
The 6 perfections.
Yeah, the 6 perfections, right? We say, oh, the perfection of wisdom. Yeah. So that's another thing that we might refer to when we say, yeah. Now, interesting, because, and this is just a quick aside, that's what the IZER looks like. Did I do that right? Is that how you spell perfectionizer? Is that how you do it or not?
Yeah.
English is my second language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not really a 6th perfection, because we aspiring bodhisattvas, if you were here last class, would go, oh, I am practicing the 6 perfections, the perfection of generosity or giving, the perfection of ethics, the perfection of not getting angry when you're supposed to, the perfection of joyful effort, enjoying doing good things like not getting angry when you're supposed to, the perfection of concentration or meditation, controlling your stupid monkey mind, yeah, and lastly the perfection of wisdom, right? And when you first learn that, you think, I can't do that, I'm not perfect. Like, that's what I thought. I'm like, this is way beyond me. I can't practice these perfections. They're not perfections that you have to be perfect at them, okay? They are things that perfectionize you, yeah? They deliver you to Buddhahood. So the 6th perfection is the perfection of wisdom, yeah? The Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom. It's actually that activity, that thinking, while we're still human and afflicted and thinking the world comes this way, practicing this is the medicine that perfectionizes you to understand wisdom. Is that cool? So we can all do it, yeah?
Does that mean that if you're having trouble with patience, you can work on ethics, or if you're having trouble with ethics, you can work on generosity? Like, I'm just wondering, like, I know the karmic correlations and stuff, right? But if the perfections feed into one another in that way, maybe if you're having difficulty maintaining ethics, you could just work on giving a lot.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And then they're not necessarily sequential, although understanding the last perfection will let you see the other perfections completely different, yeah? And Master Shantideva says, begin with small steps that you can do and gradually grow them, right? So yeah, you might not be great at the perfection of ethics. Nobody is. When you're starting a, so has anybody here played an instrument before? Put up your hand. Good. Who's really good at it? Put down your hand. Good. When you decided you're going to play the instrument, did you become an expert at it? No. It just takes this effort. This is no different, except it's way more difficult because it's in your monkey mind. And you've got a habituation in there for eons. We pop into this world already habituated to see the world coming this way. Yeah, this, the big umbrella this, because there's other ways of interpreting this, is saying, turn that inside out. And that is so hard for us. So that the last way that we can think of as the perfection of wisdom, and this is the one I want you to take away, and I'm going to give you a definition. I'm trying not to give you too many. I'm only doing them when I have to. Is the perfection of wisdom, understanding what wisdom really is as a realization, as an internal thing in you that looks at this world. Do you get that? As a thing that you have. inside of you, because you either practice the 6 perfections, or you studied Hume, or you did the middle lower way school. Yeah, does that make sense? As a realization, as something inside of you, because you've learned it enough. And here is the long definition. Right? Someone read it out loud. Volunteers.
Realization, the knowledge of a person of the greater way with which they perceive emptiness, and which is imbued with the wish for enlightenment.
So here's the technical definition. For those of you who have studied, let's put it in layman's term. Okay, what do we mean by the knowledge of a person? It means something you know. Yeah, a knowing. Yeah. What's a person of a greater way? Greater way. Someone, yeah, someone that is thinking about putting these ideas into practice with other people in mind, not just me. Yeah, cool, right away. Yeah. So I'm going to learn how to meditate, or I'm going to learn these words, or I'm going to sit in a classroom with a guy with a beard who's confusing me, so I can help my mom and my sister and the angry person at work, or, you know, my aunt who's suffering. I want to help her. I also want happiness, but I've got all these people around me, and if you can expand that circle to everybody on the planet who's suffering, then you're getting there.
So it's a person that has bodhicitta.
Person of the greater way. Yeah. Now we can debate. We started debate. We'll end the class with bodhicitta, but do you have bodhicitta when you start bodhicitta? Do you know playing an instrument when you start playing an instrument? You see? Do you have it when you wish it? Discussion. Yeah. At least have that. And actually, it's saying here, with this knowing, they perceive emptiness. Right? Did I say directly? No. Can you perceive emptiness intellectually?
Yes.
You can, right? Prove me somebody in this room who perceived emptiness indirectly. All of you that discussed it in the last question. You with the pencil and the termites. You with all the levels of emptiness, seeing everything coming from you, right? Every one of your groups had some kind of perception, intellectual, of, oh, that's what emptiness means, right? Good, you're almost there. Which is imbued, right, with the wish, which is bodhicitta. Let me give you a summary. I think this, how's that? Is that less technical?
So it's just like the definition of a real.
I just needed to give you the technical definition. And you can just say someone having the perception, not necessarily directly at this level, although there is some definitions that will go there, under the influence of bodhicitta.
The word greater meaning all beings get enlightened, or bodhicitta meaning enlightenment of all beings. Is that what we're saying?
I have to go back and look at what greater means there. I'm assuming it means, I'm not sure it means all beings. I mean, I think it means
The greater way is
Mahayana, yeah.
But they use the word great enlightenment, meaning enlightenment of all.
I don't think it's that. Check it out on the reading, yeah? I also want to get you out before 10 o'clock, so I don't want to answer too many of your questions, yeah? We got that so far? Now, this old bearded person has, I want to use as wisdom, and this one as a warrior with Jesus' heart. I want to call them as the person that wants to take care of all beings. Is that cool? That's why we're using that. Now, if we understand wisdom, the perfection of wisdom, does this give you a close enough explanation or not? Yeah, is it confusing? Yeah. It's a little confusing. Okay. We did the root author, we did the commentary, we're doing good. With this knowledge, we can go now to one of the most all-encompassing basic ideas of Buddhism, yeah, which is what? Refuge, yeah. Every Buddhist everywhere will tell you refuge. Doesn't matter what kind of school, what idea they have of emptiness, every single Buddhist has the idea of refuge. We go, as Buddhists, we go to refuge. What's refuge?
Like safe space.
Safe space, protection, real protection, right? We think doing certain things will protect you, right? And like in life, when we get sick, we go to, did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay. When someone steals from us all our money, we call, yeah, I got it right. Investigators first, and then the police, right? This is refuge. Oh, bad things happen to me. Something pops up in your mind, right? Bad thing, I want refuge. If you're like lost everything because someone blew up your Death Star, right? And you got no more money, you go to refuge to people with money. Yeah? So you're like, yeah, I got money. Yeah. What was that?
I am made of gold.
I am made of gold. And in our country, I was discussing with Mum that more than half of our taxes go to pay for military. When we feel threatened or hurt, or some weird dressed people have a gun, our minds go crazy because they're going to kill us. And so we got to kill them a lot. Not a little bit, like a lot. Yeah? Just in case.
A lot.
But you see, we really do go, if you're pushed, I don't care that we're in a Buddhist class right now, but if someone came up to you in the subway looking a little weird, like a guy befriended me on Facebook. Have you heard of Facebook? It's a new... I do that joke all the time. Yeah, you've heard of Facebook?
I have a question.
I don't want to answer questions.
And it's on topic.
Go.
Is refuge the like where you go or the belief?
We're getting to it.
Is it? But is it?
We're getting to it. We're getting to it. I'll give you a complete definition, I promise. Hold it. Yeah? I had a guy on Facebook befriend me today. I had because it was my birthday and because I just did these talks, like 6 talks in Florida in 2 days. All these people just befriend. So I've got all this list and I'm like, I don't know who you are. So I check who your friends are. And then this kid, awesome dreads. He looked really happy. I'm like, I never met him, but he looks cool. And he went to the school that I did the talk, so he must have been there. And I like him, so I'm like, yeah, be friend. And then I could see all his pictures. And then there was all this Arabic writing, right? And my mind went, Arabic writing. Because, I get stopped at the airport a lot since I grew the beard. I don't necessarily look blue-eyed blonde, So I get stopped a lot. I'm like, okay, now they're going to know I've got friends with Arabic writing. It was just like Arabic writing. But my mind did this stupid thing. I'm like, no, skirt, I'm going to be his friend, despite my stupid ideas. And I clicked 3 more pictures and he was dressed. I don't know where he comes from, but he doesn't come from here. He's studying here and he's in his home country. I didn't even check. And he's sitting there with sort of Palestinian, that pattern, yeah, and a machine gun, just relaxing with his friends, right? Chatting. And I'm like, unfriend? I'm like, no, don't unfriend him. I kept looking. He's on campus. He's enjoying himself. Like, there's this one, and I'm like, oh, I just befriended a terrorist. So anyway. So our minds quickly go for refuge. I'm giving you a hint of what refuge is by saying quickly our minds go to refuge. Yeah. Last one. If you like a lonely, if you're feeling a little, where do you go for refuge?
Ice cream.
Ice cream, sex. No, you find yourself someone. Yeah, you grinder. There you go. Grinder.
How do you know that those are women?
Yeah, true. Let's go beyond Star Wars now for a second before we get to sex wars. So the question is, all of those things you went to refuge for, all of the ones we discussed, go. Samsara means they will go. Yeah, at some point you'll be old enough where the doctor cannot help you, which means it's not a refuge. It's a relative refuge. Yeah, it's not some protection. At some point, the doctor will say, can't do it. Yeah, the lawyer will say, don't have enough money, or that's too hard, even though it's unfair. At some point, the love thing, that's not working anymore. In samsara, in this world, these refuges disappear. The older we get, the more forgotten we get, the less these things work. It's like they lose their power for us. Sorry, no medicine can help you now. And it's a truth, okay? Now, if we still think the world comes that way, then we're screwed. But if you understand logically that that thing is blank, this experience is blank, then it's possible to understand what it is that we're projecting that causes these things to break down, so we don't create those causes and produce an ultimate result rather than a broken result. That logically is possible, but we're already swimming in impossible. So it's hard. So in this class, we're going to get an imprint. It's like an unstoppable imprint. After this class, you will understand what Buddhist Refuge is. And Buddhist Refuge says they are refuges. Refuges require a couple of things. Fear. I don't want this to happen. Yeah, a problem. A second, the mind of its own accord, will see some other object outside of yourself as protection. And then you go to it. Yeah? Like, stole money. Mind of its own accord goes, hurt, problem, police. Yeah? And with the hopes that that will help you. Buddhism says, doesn't matter what it is you try in this world, if you think it's coming that way, it ain't going to help you. It'll break down. Right? So what is refuge for Buddhists if it's such a big deal for Buddhists? So let's go there. It's the most essential idea of Buddhism. I want to make sure I covered everything. Here is your definition, Aaron. You happy? Not there yet, is it? I'm just teasing you. There it is. So someone read it to me.
State of mind which of your own accord you put your hopes into some other object to give assistance to you.
Normal refuge, okay? Now, here is those things again. We often go, this is the summary of the things we go to refuge for. Money will fix it, food will fix it, yeah, drink will fix it, adventure will fix it, kinky will fix it. Like some kind of extreme pleasure. And that's normal refuge. For those of you that have studied, what's Buddhist refuge? We only take refuge in three things. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, sort of. Okay, we've heard of that, right? Buddha, Dharma, Sangha.
Yeah.
They are called the three jewels. Oh, that's uncanny. So, and this is where I want to really, I really want to do an impact on your mind if I can, okay? Because I started learning these things and they were transformative. I hadn't heard ideas like this ever. Once I got to understand a little bit, I was hooked and I wanted to understand more and more. So one good day, many years after, like a decade after almost, a bit less, studying these things, I'm going to Nepal, where all these Buddhists that know this stuff really well are going to help me understand it better. Yeah? And it's a community of mostly Tibetan refugees who have left Tibet and are now living in Kathmandu, Nepal. And it's monastery after monastery with thousands of monks and nuns and magical beings walking around in red robes. And I hang out with some of them and I get to know them and I'm in awe. And then I see them taking refuge and there's some Mahayana and some Hinayana monks and nuns. And when I dig a little deeper, I'm sorry to say so, but sadly it's true. I don't think they understand what I learned about refuge. They take care of that statue, that metal statue, as if the statue itself is the refuge. And then that brings me back to my Catholic days. I tell you what refuge is not. It's not going to the doctor when you're sick. It's not, the Buddhist refuge is not that. We clarified that, right? But I want to add to that normal refuge the idea, because we as humans have this terrible habit of making everything normal. So at some point, you might have gotten the truth about Buddha, Dharma, Sangha as refuge. Why they're refuge, we'll discuss. But it can become stupid practice of you kneeling down to a statue or doing prostrations before class, or like the Buddha statue, or going to a painting or whatever it is, or seeing a monk or a nun and saying, you will help me. Your mind automatically goes there for protection and seeking help. Is there protection really? Talk to me logically. Let's say you're hurting for some terrible reason. Is protection in the metal of that creature there? No. Prove me why it's not.
It's not coming from the
it can't be coming that way. If it was, everybody that walked into the room would be fixed, enlightened, right? No problem, right? Every time. It's the same story I told you at the beginning of going to the priest or going and kneeling down. If I just ask that stupid statue just right, it somehow is going to fix me. Thinking that way ain't refuge, That emoji. Not refuge. But we might think it is because we've gone into a temple. The three jewels. Yeah? Oh, a monk or a nun. Did I tell you the story about that amazing nun that I saw at Union Square maybe 4 years ago now? And I couldn't stop looking at her. She was amazing. I'm like, I haven't seen a Tibetan monk. Well, she was a Westerner, but in Tibetan robes. And I'm like, I'm waiting in line, buying my latte or whatever it is, and I'm looking at her. Like, I'm forgetting that I'm looking at her. And she yells at me. She's like, don't you know it's rude to stare? And then she wouldn't shut up. She's like, you should turn around. And I'm like, it's okay. And she was just angry as hell. Right? Now, I was getting a good teaching right there and then. But that wasn't refuge unless I was thinking about it in a specific way. A being with colored robes ain't refuge, ain't protection. But our minds would have us think that now I'm in a holy place. Now you're a good person because you're studying Buddhism. You're not stupid like the rest of the people out there who are getting drunk, right? You're in the three jewels. You're protected. Not true. Not true. Buddhist refuge is different from that refuge. Yeah? So Buddha, the stories of Lord Buddha, the king of the Sakyas, head of the Sakya clan. The Sakya clan got invaded, chopped up and butchered people. Some people went to hide behind the Buddha and hold on to his robes, and they got slain. But the actual Buddha. No protection for that person. Where did death come from that person? An axe, you could say. But did the axe come this way or that way? You really have, it was an axe for him and not an axe for the Buddha. In both ways, it can be swim that way. Yeah. Hey, Stephen's being funny. So, in Buddhism, refuge is the Buddhist refuge, the real refuge, which we'll get to talk to now, is the only thing that protects you. And if you understand this, that's the imprint you should leave here, and that will never leave you because all the other refuges will fall apart. And this seed tonight must grow. You can't put a seed and not grow. It must produce a result. Now, whether that result is wimpy and then you forget about it, that's your problem, right? If you nurture it and return to it and plant a field of these seeds, you can have real protection. So what is it if it's not the actual Buddha or the Dharma, the stuff that the Buddha taught, yeah? Or the monks and nuns that were wearing funny clothes? So the three jewels are called jewels because they are the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. Something about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Yeah? And here is a very quick summary of what it means. It means that the Buddha jewel is the ultimate nature of a Buddha or a Buddha's mind is what? Just like the pencil. Empty of being that way from its own side. Just like your mind, your mind is empty. Your mind does not have the nature, I know, I hate that, does not have the nature of being this way only. If it did, if your mind was always necessarily this way from its own side, it couldn't change. You would have been born with this mind and you would die with this mind, exactly as it is, never changing. And that's not true. The mind is changing. You're perceiving your own mind all the time. You're projecting your awareness of your own mind. Your mind doesn't have this nature. This second half of my century, from the year 50 onwards, is a particularly good year for this mind. I can tell you, having my mum visit from Australia, I've been reminded of this mind not being so nice. Even though right now I believe my life was pretty good. She's like, oh, do you remember when you did this stupid thing? I'm like, oh, I don't want to, but I do now. Right? Like, and she reminds me just through nice anecdotes of how disturbed this mind was. How much I hurt other people in the past. And I'd forgotten now because I'm like in bliss, enjoying my teaching, whatever. She's like, no, remember you actually did that. I actually did that. It's like a completely different mind that this thing had. So to me, it was a testament of the purification of practice and rehabituation of who you think you are. It's possible. And if that is possible, then that's possible, and then that's possible. So the mind of a Buddha, the way a Buddha, an enlightened being, sees her mind or his mind is as a being who can see all things, past, present, and future, right? Both relatively and ultimately, sees its ultimate nature, sees its emptiness, and how it can appear in all these different ways for all these different beings, all at once, which our mind cannot do. Once you're sitting on emptiness, you can't be sitting on relative things. Yeah? So that mind wasn't like that always, isn't born that way. Yeah? It was produced through cause and effect until the removal of this way of thinking occurred permanently. Permanently removed the obstructions to their enlightenment. So that mind is empty, just like your mind is empty. It doesn't have this nature. It changed over this life. So the Buddhist mind and your Buddhist mind have, in essence, exactly the same nature. That is your Buddha nature. Buddha nature doesn't mean anything else, except that your mind is as blank as a Buddha's mind. The Buddha's projection onto its own mind is, wow, this is bliss. I'm never going to suffer again. There's no pain, and I see everything. Dude, this is cool. Your mind is like, I'm happy, I'm sad, I want more food. Oh, my food makes me sick. Oh, I like girls, I like boys. No, I like boys. Yeah. Etc., etc., etc. Yeah, and we're like fluctuating because we don't know where things come from. And at some point that can break. But the nature of both minds are blank. Now that there's some protection there. Can you see the protection? Because if it's here, it can be here because it's got its same nature. All you have to do is figure out what produced this one and what produced this one, remove that, and you got that. Is that cool? Yeah. Dharma jewel. Let's go there. It's not that. It's not that. What do we have there? Emptiness, which we talked about as a concept, intellectual understanding of emptiness, yeah, is, can you understand logically that things don't have a nature? Is that fair enough? Logically, right? We can discuss it, go, yeah, I got that. Self-nature. Self-nature, nature from its own side. Yeah. Thanks for the correction, because it does have some nature. Yeah, the nature you give it, forced upon you by your past actions. Imagine that understanding that you had intellectually, so habituated that that's all you see around the world. Every time you see something happening, you see, oh, that t-shirt isn't that way, this way. I'm enjoying that t-shirt because something in me produced that quality of enjoyment towards that object. Oh, and that object. Oh, and that object. Oh, and that object, and that object, and that object. Oh. And when you're walking around going, that doesn't have a nature, that doesn't have a nature, from its own side, but the nature is imputed. And I know that because someone hates that t-shirt, someone doesn't like her, and so on, and they can coexist, which they do. That's what life is. It's these different natures coexisting. They don't come from the stuff. Imagine walking around with that knowledge and you get so strong at it, and you've got the habit of meditating, that you can bring your mind to its subtlest form, the place where you're no longer seeing your mind moving as an observer anymore. You're like locked into that deepest state of meditation at the foundation of your consciousness. And then at that, you drop into that realization of emptiness, where you are no longer witnessing your mind having a thought about it, or an expression about it, or an understanding about it. You are in the understanding, if it were. There is no you to have an understanding, because you is also a concept projected, right? You are in the ultimate nature of all things. They call it water poured into water. And for that period of time, you have what's called the direct perception of emptiness. You see with complete clarity, with complete certainty, you are in this experience. And you can't talk about this experience. There isn't words for it, because the words are not in the experience. The experience is a visceral experience of a lack of something that you thought was there and wasn't ever there. A lack of something. So when you so there is 0 pink elephants in this room. Is that true? Yeah, that's the emptiness of pink elephants in this room. No pink elephants in this room. Could there ever be a naturally pink elephant? No. So the realization that there was never something here that you thought was here could never have been here. You get that sense after coming out of that direct perception of emptiness. That you get the sense that you just saw something ultimate, something complete, something all-encompassing, something that explains absolutely everything. And your mind begins to make connections that make complete sense of the world that you thought was before this way. And all of a sudden you see with complete perfection that it's going this way, and what you did to create that specificness, and what you need to do to stop it. You will also see how long it will take your mind to reach a state of enlightenment. You will touch what's called the Dharmakaya, the mind of a Buddha, directly, and you come out of that experience. Imagine entering that experience in meditation, coming out of that experience, having the next 24 hours like a domino effect of realizations, where you see this very world, not some bullshit imaginary world, this very world, your same mother, your same eyeballs, your same skin, and you now see that you'd never experienced reality like this before. You wake. You are all waking. Now, unfortunately, we still have the shit habit of seeing the world coming this way, not this way, right? So that reasserts itself, because we still have done a bunch of seed planting of thinking the world comes that way, yeah? Except you no longer believe the illusion that the world is out there doing stuff to you. You know with complete certainty if someone's mean to you, you must have caused that in the past. And so the last thing you want to do is plant the seeds to produce more of that, so you are kind. And Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Not so you can get punched more. It's not so you can get, oh, hurt me some more. I'm like the Batman masochist, yeah? Pseudo-man. It's not for that. It's because you know that you create your reality through your actions. Imagine, right, that because you understood that, you could stop the cycle that created every suffering here. That, Dharma Jewel, is protection. Protection from what? At least not causing another cycle of suffering. But if you had a real, true, visceral experience of suchness, of that thing, nobody could remove that from you if it came with certainty. So
Can I ask you a question?
you can ask a question, but I can't promise I'll answer.
It's super quick.
Yeah.
So a Buddha wouldn't see anybody with depression, for example.
Good question.
If you
She asked, a Buddha would not see anybody with depression. You know my stock answer for that. Someone want to answer that?
It's kind of like when a mother sees a child who's skinned their knee and they're screaming like it's the end of the freaking world, and they're like freaking out and oh my god, and then the mother knows that it's going to be okay, it's a momentary thing, and they actually know how to help the child.
It sees the blood, it sees the thing, it doesn't feel the scraping like the child feels it and experiences it. A Buddha will see our suffering, but it's not involved in our suffering that we are. It knows it will end. It knows that you're just going to have to go through maybe 600 lifetimes before you fix it, but you're the only one that can fix it. Yeah? And so it has compassion. I can't answer questions. I know you want to, sorry. Until I finish the content, keep them. And I like that you have them, but I've got so much to finish and I really want to, otherwise we won't get to. Are we okay so far? You're all like very serious. Either you're hating it or you're asleep. Okay. And lastly, let's go. So you see how that is protection? If our life has suffering because we did stuff, because we didn't understand where things came from, you hurt me, I hurt you. Me hurting you means when I see him later, he hurts me. And I'm like, I didn't do anything to you. No, you planted hurting over there. How long does it take a seed to grow? A while. By the time it grew, I forgot I hurt you. Yeah, and here it is. You hurt me, but I didn't do anything today. That person that hurt me without me having anything to do with it does not exist, could not exist, has never existed. Why? Because it's doing it to me. My mind is engaged with it. So something in my mind is producing it, and that is what I did to you in the past. Living life like that, which is what we do, is the cycle of suffering, samsara. To kill samsara, stop it in its track. The protection is obviously don't hurt her and he won't hurt you. Don't hurt anybody, nobody will hurt you. But they're hurting me. That's because you hurt people in the past, you idiot. Okay, but that's not intuitive for us. And it's dangerous, we're afraid of it. Yeah? Understanding it truly in a visceral experience because you've done the study, because you've done the practice, because you've meditated on it and you've seen it for yourself, not because I told you, not because the Buddha said, but because you've got no other alternative, then the rest of the world living the normal way will end with refuges that don't work anymore. But logically, this can perfect you. Logically, now you've got to live it. Yeah. The third of the refuges, the Sangha jewel, are the beings who have had that direct experience, have that certainty, and we go to them for refuge, meaning, I don't know what to do now, help me. They can get us there quicker. You wouldn't go to a cement mixer for your piano lessons because they don't know anything about it unless they're a really good cement mixer pianist. So let me give you some definitions of definitions. You got that one already, right? Oh, you got the Dharma jewel is the truth or reality. Is that there? Yeah. Which relates to the greater way, which we talked about in a second, and to the enlightened side of the four truths, which we don't. Some of you know what that means, and which involves either a cessation or a path. It basically means give me an example of a cessation. After you've seen Emptiness directly, I gave you the hint already. You have this visceral experience that the world isn't coming this way. You understand things have no nature at all, and that they are coming this way based on what you've put in your mind over time. Cessation that you have at the point after seeing Emptiness directly. Doubt. You no longer doubt, because one of the qualities of that experience is you have certainty. You're not crazy. You understand this as a truth. And at that point, the doubt about, am I doing these right things to stop the cycles, that's gone for good. So a being who has had that direct experience no longer has that doubt about this path. The path that if I do this, and I'm hesitant to call it the Buddhist path because it's not, the Buddha doesn't own it, he just spoke it. It's available to everybody that lives it. Yeah, and you will be called some other name. You're not going to be called the Buddha. Yeah? And a path, what do we mean by a path? So a cessation is that. It involves a cessation. After you have this experience, then you have something stops. In this case, we're giving an example of a doubt stops. Yeah. Give me an example of another cessation, those of you who have studied the 5 paths.
Aversion.
No.
Mental afflictions.
No, I'll give you a hint there, I think. No, I didn't. Now I'll give you a hint.
What you just said that one.
Great. The hint. The doubt I just gave you.
Oh.
Come on.
Dependent origination?
It's possible.
Well, isn't it like, like, okay, you only reincarnate like 7 more times maximum, right?
That's a typical, when you come out of the direct perception of emptiness, you have an understanding of how many karmas you've got left to live a human life before you reach, and you know for certainty that that's not a cessation.
Well, yeah, right.
On the second path, which is the path of
Preparation. What?
path of preparation. Yeah, we'll cover it for those of you that don't know in a sec. At the third of the 4 stages there, you stop reincarnating as anything lower than a human. You stop, you understand emptiness so clearly intellectually in the second path, where you are learning this stuff and you've internalized so much, it's impossible for you to have a lower rebirth than a human because you know where things come from. That might be an example of another cessation.
Wait, only in the second path?
After
Yeah.
the direct perception.
Oh, after the direct.
Oh, after the second path? Before the direct perception?
It's called peak and the second path, before the direct perception of emptiness. Yeah. I thought we covered that in karma. A path is you get true renunciation, for example. You're like, oh my God, I really am sick of doing these things that cause me things. I'm done with it completely. Yeah, and you enter the path of accumulation through renunciation. Yeah. So the only thing that really helps you, not the statue, not the tankas. Does that mean you shouldn't bow to the statue and you shouldn't bow to the thing and you shouldn't do that? No. So why the hell do you do it if it doesn't help you? Trick question.
It does help you.
It can.
How does it? It can help you. How?
Depending on what you're
It's inside you. Your understanding that there is truly, look, that's a representation of a creature like me who had a schmucky mind. They did some things that I should learn, and I'm bowing to the possibility that I want to think and act and speak like them. Is that right? Think, act. So, yeah, good. And so that is putting an imprint in your mind, but you're not confused. That's a representation of what's possible for you. It ain't the metal that's doing it. So, but our minds would have us believe that. That's why we have religion. Our minds make dogma, yeah, out of whatever the opposite. So for those of you that wanted that, before you enter the path, before you enter a path for yourself, a way out of suffering, a way that explains this experience, we are like zombies on our iPhones, just caught in this reality that we think comes that way. And if I get this right job or that right relationship, we're just zombies. And we've been zombies for eons on this planet. Thousands of years of buildings and structures and paintings and instructions, and we're dying like flies with the same problems. I bomb your country. No, you bomb my country. No, I bomb your country. No, I like you. I hate you. We've done it. I like this food. You're wrong. I'm right. Forever. The world ain't coming that way, and our instinct isn't helping. Pre-path. At some point, you enter the path of accumulation, where you get true renunciation. Let's put the 3 principal paths, which was last course, over the 5 paths, just to confuse the hell out of us, right? The first 2 paths, which are renunciation and bodhicitta, fall under the path of accumulation, you could say. Yeah, you're sick and tired of the world not working, and you're sick and tired for yourself and others. Yeah, you've got enough. I want out. So you begin the path of accumulating goodness, doing just the right things because your motivation shifted. You begin to accumulate good imprints because they are imbued with the wish to get the hell out of a suffering. And it's not like you get taken out of the planet. This very room, one day you can walk in here and feel terrible. The next day you can walk in here and feel blessed. It's about walking in here and always feeling blessed. And it ain't coming from the room, it ain't coming from the statue. It comes from my mind. Right? So at some point you're like, oh, I've got to do this. Whatever this is. This to me is a blueprint. And after that, you begin to prepare the path of preparation, which is all about the study of all these practices, but mostly the perfection of wisdom. Understand that the world ain't coming this way, that things are empty, and that something's forcing that to happen. Understand it in every way. Read about it, practice, talk it to people, do experiments, whatever you got to do. Tick-tock, death's at your door. You don't have time to waste doing something that other people have already done and it's not worked out for them. When you're at this point towards the end of the path of preparation, you have, I think it's there's 4 steps, it's the third part. Your intellectual understanding of where things come from is enough for you never to take a human rebirth. A rebirth less than a human, and a lower rebirth. Yeah, and that's what that line refers to here. That's what I was talking. At this, you'll get such a clear understanding of emptiness intellectually before seeing it directly that it's no longer possible for you to project a lower rebirth, because you know where things have come from and you've done enough accumulation and preparation. Now, that's in the scripture. You can debate it, because I can debate it too. Yeah, but not now. And then you have that experience I just talked about. It's called the third path, the path of seeing, where you have a direct experience of emptiness. Emptiness is not a thing. Emptiness is a lack of a thing. Unfortunately, we have to give names to things that are lacks of things.
This is the third path?
This is the third path, the path of seeing. Yeah? And it's just a short path, a short moment. It's something like 15 to 20 minutes in meditation, because you're sick and tired of it being the other way, because you've studied enough and practiced it enough that your mind has enough seeds, enough virtue to project that reality as a secure, solid reality, because that is what makes reality.
So renunciation and bodhicitta is the first one. Preparation is the second.
Yeah, preparation is your intellectual study of emptiness mostly. And the path of seeing is like you come out of this world, if you like, this state of being, and you see the ultimate nature. And then, unfortunately, you drop back in because you still got the old habits, and you enter the path of habituation, where you see the world still coming that way. That is a flower, that is a pencil, but you no longer believe it really comes that way. Oh, you've had a visceral experience, and nobody after this point would believe the illusion anymore. And so it's like a fast track out, because you are now working not with pretend courses, but with ultimate courses. If you knew the code of the matrix, all of a sudden you just got the passcode to the key of your matrix, because you saw the code, to put that analogy. So, and that's what could take typically 7 lifetimes, where you see your future enlightenment, etc. You see what you need to go through, but they say that after you've had this experience, you will always be born in a conducive place because of karma that will provide you the equipment to practice these things, teach these things, and do, and get out of suffering. And then like the fifth of those paths is called the path of no more learning, which is not a path, it's a result. If you've entered these 5 stages of spiritual evolution with the motivation just to help yourself, you will end up in Nirvana, which is the permanent cessation of all mental afflictions. You're cool. If you've entered this path doing exactly the same stuff with the motivation to help not just yourself but everybody else, you reach a state of Buddhahood, complete enlightenment. We can talk about that in a second. So,
Can I ask you a question?
No, I've got 10 minutes to do 3 more questions. I'm going to give you, there are 5 kinds of refuges in your reading. You only have to remember the answer to this one is like refuge. Remember what refuge is? It's like you fear something, you think something else is going to help you, and in the Buddhist sense, you think that one of the 3 jewels will be able to protect you from that, right? You think, oh, the Buddha Dharma Sangha is going to help me, and then they're going to help me with that. Does that make sense? So remember there's 3 scopes: lesser scope, meaning I just don't want to suffer anymore. I don't want a lower rebirth. Medium scope is I just want to get to Nirvana. Greater scope is I want everyone. I want to become a Buddha. Right. So a refuge shared with that is like, oh, I can see that cycles of suffering creates experiences that are dog-like and flea-like and less than human-like hell realms and hungry ghosts, if you believe that or have studied that. I don't want that anymore. So your motivation for practicing is like people shared with the lesser scope, which is way beyond our Western thinking, right? The lesser scope. And so that is, I think the three jewels can help me. The Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, the Sangha jewel. And so you go to that for refuge, yeah?
So that makes sense, because when you said that in the peak point of the path of preparation, when you start to intellectually understand emptiness, that you'll never take a lower rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And like once you understand emptiness, that's the only place you can take refuge.
Mm-hmm.
So
awesome. So then medium scope is me getting out of suffering for my sake. Greater scope is that. The fourth one is cause, where you find somebody outside of you who has some qualities of the three jewels. Like for me, it's my holy teacher who I believe has had these experiences, is a manifestation of an enlightened being. I know it sounds bizarre, but it didn't sound bizarre to me last week. It sounded bizarre to me 10 years ago. It doesn't sound bizarre anymore, because they imagine a being who actually has seen emptiness directly, meaning they've had that visceral experience. They no longer have doubt. They actually become two of the three jewels. They become the Sangha jewel, because they are the beings who have had the direct experience of emptiness and can teach you. That's protection. And then they become the Dharma jewel. They have that realization inside of them. They're not yet the Buddha jewel. Yeah? So when you have a direct experience of emptiness, when you become two of the refuges that Buddhists bow to, because you possess two of the three jewels. Make sense? And this is the meditation we did at the beginning. The fifth refuge is result refuge. Result refuge is taking refuge in your future enlightenment. Right? Recognizing that if cause and effect are true, if Javier did just the right things, understanding that the world came this way, and just did the right things, and you could logically prove that you could become an enlightened being. And if enlightened beings who exist, you can logically say exist, like you can say amoeba existed outside our time zone. They exist in the past, present, and future for themselves. They're projecting that reality on their own mind. They are looking at you right now going, hurry that up. They're looking at you, the Rachel-ness that is here right now, whatever steps that Rachel-ness has to go through, they are looking back and saying, I remember that. She's got to go left here and right here. She's got this karma she's got to do. Come on, Rachel. No, it's not that. It's this. Yes, it's being kind to Santi, but more often. She did hear that. Right? So the result refuge for me is one of the best meditations, because logically, if you go through the logic that your mind can evolve from a child to the now and to later, then it can continue. If it doesn't stop, then it can continue to evolve to a point of perfection. And that mind outside our time zone is looking back at you, Richard, and saying, Richard, come on. You're that close. Don't veer to the left. You can, by doing these next 3 days meditation, you can save 300 years. Hurry up. Yeah, plant the seeds, etc. So the actual, I want to bring it back to actual refuge. Yeah, actual protection from the Buddhist point of view ain't coming from stuff outside of you. It's coming from these realizations that things don't have a nature. Understanding of emptiness, the perfection of wisdom. Yeah? And it's just like the angry boss story. She yells at me. The last thing I want to do is yell at her, because I'm just creating the causes for more yelling in the future. So an act of refuge is an act of truth in the moment, minute by minute by minute. When you get angry, the last thing you do is get angry. Will you feel anger? Sure. Where did that come from? Also projected. Over time, you can shorten the gap between reaction and actual impulse until the point you don't have an impulse and angry people start disappearing. And that's true for jealousy, envy, lust. Anytime you're sick, heartbroken, dying, remember where it comes from. Act in accordance to your understanding of cause and effect, not reaction through habit. And they are individual acts of refuge, day to day to day to day. And these are just the negative ones. You can do this for the positive ones. I still have hair, for example, for you. Right? Like, look at me, I have hair. That didn't come from your head, according to this. That, if you like your hair, it came from you taking care of other people's hair in the past or something like that. So then I've got a bunch of questions that I need you to answer, and I'm just going to put up the answers. But bodhicitta has something like 26 explanations in this ornament of realizations, 26 different ones. And I just want to give you a few, right? The big Maitreya one is the wish for enlightenment for the sake, for everybody else. I want to get enlightened now so everyone else can see this freedom available to them. That can say bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is code word for the direct perception of emptiness, for example. You can have the wish bodhicitta in the form of a prayer, like, I want to go to Chicago, but you're not doing anything about it, right? Not that anybody would want to go to Chicago. But yeah, I want to go, like the wish to go somewhere, right? I wish I could get enlightened. And then you can actually get on the bloody bus, pay the ticket, and go to Chicago, right? The wish in the form of action. I'm going to do something over there. And typically there are ceremonies associated with that where you actually take vows, because vows, promises, hold your mind tighter, which means the seed is deeper, which means it will come out faster, stronger. So vows are a thing because it imprints your mind deeper, which means the result is faster. Make sense? So you can have the wish, I wish I could be an enlightened being. I wish I can get enlightened so I can help my mom. Good. You take vows to try and figure that out. And eventually you're like, okay, I'm going to do stuff so my mom can get enlightened too. Yeah? So that's one way you can divide the wish. Another way you can divide the wish is a deceptive form of the wish on ultimate. So this is interesting, right? Ultimate, I already told you, it's the direct perception of emptiness. It's just code word. The ultimate wish for enlightenment is just being in and the complete understanding of emptiness. So scratch that one out. The deceptive form of the wish for enlightenment, the wish to wake up for the sake of all beings, is where you sit there and we're looking at all these people that we know comes this way, but I'm really seeing and experiencing that way. So I'm dealing with deceptive Stephen. I still think Stephen's out there. It doesn't matter how much I'm teaching you otherwise. The dude's over there, and if he throws something at me, I'm going to do like, actually came that way. Yeah? My mind is, if you're in samsara, your mind thinks that way. That in deceptive reality, the reality that is fake, that isn't real, the illusion. Yeah? So acting in the wish, in the deceptive form, is acting with all these self-existent people that we're trying to self-existently get out of a self-existent samsara. Yeah? We have that infection in our minds. Yeah? And that's it. Study. And before we finish, let's do this. Okay? Happy, no, kidding. kidding. Let's do that. No, let's do that. Oh, damn it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hector. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. So we have a little offering for you because we take refuge as the culmination of all of our goodness together. Please stay, please teach us, and please enjoy a little thing. And there's also more cake coming. So yeah, you're gonna have to turn around and like look that way.